breath can be used to really support you in any situations, so for example, if somebody is full of emotion, maybe they're quite stressed or they're anxious, to actually take your attention to the breath, to consciously slow down the breath, you'll actually then change the dynamic of the oxygen and carbon dioxide, and you'll actually begin to calm the nervous and parasympathetic nervous system.
Welcome to the Lifestyle First podcast, discussing lifestyle medicine and making self-care as easy as 1, 2, 3. And now your host, lifestyle medicine physician and coach, Dr. Alka Patel.
Hi, hey, and hello, and welcome to Series 10, Episode 6 of the Lifestyle First podcast. So what are we discussing this week? Well, we're now on T for time out. And the one question that we're exploring is, what are the benefits of safe, regular breath work? So to help answer that, I have got with me this week Lynne Matthews. Lynne is a yoga and a massage expert, and she's also a breath coach. So welcome, Lynne, a very, very warm welcome to you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Amazing. I'm looking forward to our conversation, which is really going to be focused on breathing techniques. And I actually looked up breathing techniques and found so many. I mean, you'll probably find even more than I did. So we're talking about diaphragmatic breathing, alternate nostril breathing, pursed lip breathing. Oh, and there's lion's breath and belly breath. There's the Buteyko method, the Wim Hof method. There's Kapalbhati, Sitali breath, Ujjayi, box breathing. And there's even numbers, right? 4, 7, 8, 5, 5, 5. I could actually go on and on. And there's so many available techniques. And I think that breathing that feels so natural can sometimes start to feel quite difficult to navigate through when you think about specific techniques. And we know that these are of benefit to us. But before we dive into these, Lynne, what I really wanted you to do is perhaps take us back to the basics. Where did the art of breath work originate?
Well, I guess it's as old as time. It's it's our life force, isn't it? So I guess many thousands of years ago, way back at Indus Valley civilization, where the first kind of yogic tradition was kind of almost born, the awareness has been then really in terms of using it for energetic purposes, or even just to sustain life, sometimes in quite difficult ways of living. Back in the day, life wasn't easy. So to use your breath was a way of expanding your consciousness, to gain energy, to raise your vitality, and help you cope and manage with the stresses of everyday life.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. There's some real fundamentals related to sustenance of life and survival in a way as well. And as you say, we start off our life with breath. And there's also so many types of breath that I think we very naturally experience without overthinking them. We naturally experience different types of breath related to our different emotional and our different activity states. So yes, irregular breathing and perhaps rapid breathing, but also excitement and sighing and yawning or gasping and sleeping and laughter and sobbing. And all of these really do change the way that we breathe. And I think the key thing as well is that the way we breathe also changes the way that we feel. Is that something that you've noticed in your practice as well?
Absolutely. My teachers often said to me that, breath can be used to really support you in any situations. So for example, if somebody is full of emotion, maybe they're quite stressed or they're anxious, to actually take your attention to the breath, to consciously slow down the breath, you'll actually then change the dynamic of the oxygen and carbon dioxide, and you'll actually begin to calm the nervous and parasympathetic nervous system. So if someone's depressed, you can use another breathing technique to enliven, to give more energy, more vitality, to improve mood. So breath can be used in many really, really helpful ways if you know how.
And I think that's the key thing isn't it? It's the if you know how, because it's almost become popularized all of a sudden, hasn't it? In recent years, what are very ancient Eastern practices have come over to the West, and somehow this has taken hold. And we are really talking about breathing and breath work increasingly, which I think is absolutely the right thing to be doing. But there's also this sense that sometimes we might not be utilizing this incredible life force that we have in the right way. So can you just give us some pointers into, how can breathing techniques help us, but also perhaps touch on potentially how they can harm us as well?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, just to give a little bit of background information, traditionally, well, the old tradition that my teacher teaches is a little known tradition called the Shiva Tantra tradition, and it's from the Eastern Himalayas. The teacher would observe you first to look at the qualities that you would need to have in order to become a student. But the most important thing would be that you would just be given a really simple breathing practice to help to regulate your kind of system, your bodily systems, but also to help create space for any unresolved issues to be kind of very, very gently teased out. It gives the teacher a chance to get to know your nature, your personality, and what breath work would be good for you. I think simple, safe breathing techniques nowadays are fantastic. I really, really do advocate them. As the person is present to be taught it rather than maybe reading it or learning it out of a book. But I guess, some of the issues nowadays is that we are a nation of quick fix. We want things really quickly. And rather than maybe, sitting for a year with a very gentle 3-part breath, we want to be doing the exciting things to provoke change, when actually it might not be right for our system and our issues and where we're at in our life. We might need something different rather than exacerbating the very thing that you're trying to let go of. I don't know if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah, completely. And in fact, there's some really interesting scientific papers on this that I found as well, which actually helped sort of us to understand that emotional impact of breathing and our breath and why. And this is the sort of stuff that I get excited about. So there was a study done, I think it was March 2017 by Stanford University of Medicine. And at that time, what the researchers identified was this incredible area in the brainstem, an area of nerve cells that connects the breathing to states of mind. And so all of this wonderful art of breathing then gets translated into a real science to give us a very deep molecular understanding of how the breathing and the mind are actually connected. And I think that's a really, really important connection to make. So this area of the brain, it's almost the pacemaker for breathing. It's called the locus coeruleus. And all those neurons in the locus coeruleus, what they do is they exhibit a very rhythmic behavior. And the really exciting thing is that the timing of that rhythmic behavior, yeah, you guessed it, it correlates with the timing of breathing. And for me, that's incredibly fascinating, because also what the locus coeruleus does is it sends out all these projections to so many parts of the brain that are activated by alertness, that wake us from sleep. And then also, from what you're saying, also on the flip side, can trigger anxiety and distress depending on what is going on. So I think this idea that we've got this rhythmical breathing pacemaker in our brain that's very deeply connected to the rate and pace at which we breathe, it then sends out neurons and projections and messages to other parts of the brain that work on our emotional awareness and our mental alertness and our cognitive function, is a really important correlation to make. And I just wondered really if you've recognized that connection as well.
Yeah, as you were talking there, what I was thinking of is how our nostril predominance actually changes every couple of hours, according to what kind of part of the brain that we're kind of functioning in. And I don't know if you notice that there's certain tasks that you find a lot easier at a certain time of day than if you do it at another time of day. You just think, oh, it's the same task, but why am I really struggling to manage it? Yeah. It's more than likely because your nostril predominance has changed, and therefore the kind of part of the brain, the side of the brain is actually changed also. Yeah.
Gosh, that is really, really fascinating. So, so demystify a few things for us. Then we're talking about nostrils at the moment. So nasal breathing or mouth breathing, where do we go with that?
Well, I guess it will depend on how somebody feels comfortably. If somebody's, got kind of enlarged adenoids, for example, or they're blocked through the nostrils, it might make them feel a little bit panicky if somebody's suggesting that you must use your nostrils to breathe. So I would say, to breathe through your mouth. But a nice, gentle, natural breath would be to maybe just breathe in gently, soft, open belly, and then exhale out the mouth. So breathe in gently through the nostrils, breathe out through the mouth. Maybe make that out breath a little bit longer, and that's really nicely calming for the nervous system. Just a nice, gentle, really simple. Just bringing your attention to the breath, I think, can actually almost change how you feel, because in my experience of working with people for quite a lot of years now, most people don't really action their breathing apparatus to its full potential, So people, there's still air at the bottom of their lungs, so they're not using their lung capacity, so they've got a foggy head, they're maybe listless. When just using a simple breathing technique, maybe working from the belly, then when that's warm, a few rounds to the chest, then right up to the collarbone. So you're really using even right down to the lowest lobes of your lungs and creating that lovely light bulb in the brain, just getting everything moving, your lymphatics, your blood flow, just oxygenating the system, really.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. So back to techniques then, you talked a bit about belly breathing. Are there other specific breathing techniques? I mean, I highlighted a whole list of maybe 10 or 15 there, but are there specific techniques in specific situations that you would advocate?
Yeah, I mean, I just, as you're saying that there, I'm just thinking about something my yoga teacher impressed upon me years ago when he was teaching me the non-retention alternate nostril breath, which is an anuloma viloma, or nadi shodhana, it's known as in the kind of yogi books, I think. And it's just basically breathing in for a gentle count of 3 or 4, and then breathing out for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You're working towards an X to double your out breath. And he said to me, if I never teach you anything else in life, that is enough for you, because if you're tired and listless, it will just bring about a little bit of elevation into your system. If you're quite strung out and anxious, it'll just drop things down, because we have 2 sides to us, according to the yogis. We have the moon side and the sun side. As you can imagine, the moon side's cooling, so that will help us to calm down if we're kind of a little bit, overexcited, a bit anxious. And the sun side, our right side, is our kind of heating side. So if you're someone that's maybe a bit low or a bit depressive in nature, or you just are tired, then that will help to bring about that balance.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So this sense of that longer out breath, that longer exhalation is really important here, isn't it? In terms of activating your parasympathetic nervous system, what I always like to call P for peaceful nervous system, to really give you that kind of sense of calmness. And it's back to sort of your vagus nerve and vagal tone. And it really is sort of affecting pretty much everywhere in your body and as well. So that's really key, isn't it?
Absolutely, but I would always stress for someone that is maybe very low functioning in their, if they're a bit low mood, I wouldn't necessarily leave a very long out breath. The same as somebody is quite anxious, I wouldn't encourage them to breathe in and hold their breath, because there's so many breathing techniques, as you suggested at the beginning of the session. But it does worry me sometimes that people are reading or learning in books are not really sure what is the right thing for their nature or the issues or where they're at in their life at the moment. And short term, everything can feel great, but it's using an inappropriate breathing technique over time that could really put somebody further out of balance rather than bringing them to a place of more equilibrium,
Yeah. And I think that's really important to think about. Just those 2 things you've highlighted there, depression and anxiety in terms of emotional health, are very strongly connected to breath, but can be harmed and healed by both. So I think it's, a really important highlight as well, is to just continue to stay tuned in terms of whatever breathing techniques or methods you're choosing to, is actually really zone in on, well, how is this making me feel? And you'll know very quickly if it's actually accelerating and increasing what's difficult already, or actually alleviating that as well. So what would you say then, Lynne, in terms of regular practice? Is breath work, we're using that word a lot now as well, breath work, and something that needs regular practice? And what should that ideally look like? What sort of things do you recommend?
I honestly would just recommend just you just taking a little bit of time out, even if it's just a couple of minutes, even while you're sitting in the loo, if you're trying to escape from toddlers or work or whatever it is you've got going on, and just put your feet on the floor or sit cross-legged if you're at home or whatever, if that's comfortable, and just take your attention to the breath and just think about just breathing in gently and slowly for a count of maybe 3 or 4, depending on your lung capacity, and then breathing out for 4, 5, 6, 7 or 8. And I really don't think, we need to be anything rather than simple.
Yeah.
I just think sometimes we can really overcomplicate things to try and raise some kind of, provoke some kind of reaction sensation when really that might not be the best thing for us. And I think it's quite easy to kind of try and guide ourselves, and sometimes it is quite good to talk to somebody that really has a real understanding of how the breath works, rather than going out and trying something that just might not be right for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's really important. So let's just demystify things a little bit as well. I think sometimes when we talk about breath work, there's this visual of needing to spend several hours doing it, sitting under a tree, those sorts of images of that connection between meditation and breathing as well. And like you, I'm a real advocate of what I even call sort of 1 minute of breathing, which is very simply just take 60 seconds to just slow down your breathing. And I love that you've just simplified it to that, because it really can be as simple as that on a regular basis. And certainly then, as you say, if there's certainly more depth that's needed, then to seek out somebody who's very trained in very specific methods that will support you.
I totally agree. And as you were saying that, I was obviously listening, but I was thinking about my morning walks with my dog along the seafront, just taking time to slow my breath, look at nature. You don't have to be like for nirvana. It can be incorporated into everybody's everyday life. It doesn't have to be this mystical, wonderful thing that just bendy yogis do. It's accessible for, we all do it, don't we? Let's face it, we all breathe. So we can all consciously breathe if we choose to. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that's the key thing, is the accessibility. Your breath is with you wherever you are. So why not utilize any moments that you can to just refocus and change your experience in that moment? I think that's the beautiful thing about breath and breath work as well.
And now, here is your lifestyle first prescription. Your 3 activating actions to take you from knowing to doing.
So look, Lynne, leave us then, can you, with three techniques or 3 pieces of advice or guidance that people listening today who might be new to breath work can really think about, in terms of, back to that question, what are the benefits of safe, regular breath work? What can people start to do?
Without running the risk of repeating myself, I think keep it simple. Honestly, keep it simple. Just think about connecting to your breath, taking a slow, deep breath in, counting maybe to 4, depending on what your lung capacity is. No rasping, keep it soft, and then breathing out for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 as a count, and then just repeat that until you find your own natural rhythm, and then just sit in the space if you're sitting, or continue to enjoy your conscious breath if you're out and about.
Yeah, no, I think that's really, really useful piece of advice. Anything else? Have you got a number 2 and a number 3?
If you are looking to build a bit of a regular breathing practice, I would just suggest clearing a space or finding a space, the same space that you plan to use, say on a daily basis, until you kind of build up that energy, create that kind of pattern for the brain to recognise and to learn to go to that place. Make sure your phone is switched off, you've no outside distractions, make sure you're comfortable and warm, and then you can just maybe sit down and start concentrating on the breath, as I said with the previous points of, just conscious, maybe shut your eyes if that's comfortable, or at the very least have a static point to focus on, and just take your attention to the breath, maybe popping your hand in your belly, breathing in for a slow count to 4, and then breathing out, just relaxing and repeating. There is a lot of laughter. We do have a lot of laughter, but I would say, whilst keep it simple, don't take yourself too seriously. Enjoy what you're doing, And if you miss a day of sitting down, building your practice, just get back on your mat again the next day, or sit down again the next day. It's always going to be there for you. Make it part of something that you enjoy, like a nurturing meal. something that you're going to kind of give to yourself as a gift, something kind, something nourishing.
Oh, I love that analogy with a nourishing meal. It's like a gift to give to yourself that's always with you. So the gift that never stops giving, right? Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Lynne. It's been really useful speaking to you. I know you have years and years of expertise and experience in this field. So, and as you said, it's important for people to reach out to those who are well trained as well. So how can people reach out to you and find you? What's the best way?
Well, I'm on Instagram at Yoga and Thai Massage. My name is Lynne Matthews. I'm on Facebook. So they're my kind of two main points of contact, really.
Great. Okay. Well, I will certainly put all those links out for people to get in touch with you, which now simply leaves me to wish everyone a happy, healthy day.
Thanks for joining us on the Lifestyle First podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and share. To learn more, please visit www.dralkapatel.com.